It was a quiet afternoon in rural Texas, the kind of day where the heat shimmered off the asphalt, and the sound of cicadas filled the air. Elon Musk, known globally as a tech billionaire and the mastermind behind Tesla and SpaceX, pulled up to a modest diner on the side of a dusty road. The sign above the entrance read Molly's Place in faded red letters, its paint peeling from years of wear. As Elon stepped out of his Cybertruck, a few heads turned in curiosity. It wasn't every day someone arrived in a futuristic vehicle that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. But what caught even more attention was his choice of headwear, a bright red MAGA hat perched atop his head. To him, it was just a practical shield from the sun, but to everyone else, it was a symbol loaded with meaning, sparking whispers among the few patrons inside. The diner itself was a snapshot of small-town America. Vinyl booths lined the walls, their once bright colors now faded, and a jukebox in the corner played faint country tunes. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon hung in the air. A lone waitress behind the counter, dressed in a pastel uniform, gave Elon a friendly but hesitant smile as he entered. Elon, unfazed by the looks he was getting, scanned the room for a seat. His unassuming demeanor clashed with the aura of fame and controversy that seemed to follow him everywhere. He slid into a booth by the window, setting his hat on the table, and began flipping through the laminated menu. What Elon didn't know was that this seemingly ordinary stop would turn into an unforgettable encounter. Outside, the distant roar of motorcycles echoed through the air, growing louder with each passing second. A group of bikers was heading toward the diner, their powerful engines announcing their arrival like thunder rolling through the plains. Inside, the tension grew as the sound drew nearer. Elon remained calm, oblivious to the storm that was about to walk through the door. This was no ordinary group of bikers. They were locals with strong opinions and a reputation for being unafraid to share them. And Elon Musk, with his iconic red hat, was about to become the center of their attention. The bell above the diner door jingled sharply, cutting through the hum of conversation and clinking silverware. One by one, the bikers stepped inside, their heavy boots thudding against the scuffed linoleum floor. Leather jackets, adorned with patches of skulls and flames, bore the name of their group, Iron Hammers. They carried themselves with an air of authority, their presence commanding attention. The leader, a burly man with a salt and pepper beard and piercing blue eyes, surveyed the room. His gaze lingered on Elon for a moment, narrowing slightly as he noticed the red hat on the table. The others followed suit, their eyes darting between Elon and their leader, as though waiting for his signal. Elon, still engrossed in the menu, seemed unaware of the shift in the room's atmosphere. The waitress, who had been pouring coffee for another patron, froze mid-pour. The soft hum of the jukebox felt like a distant memory as tension thickened in the air. The leader, whose name was Duke, sauntered over to the counter. He leaned casually against it, his posture relaxed but his tone sharp as he addressed the waitress. "Quiet day, huh, Molly?" Duke's voice boomed, and the other patrons winced at the underlying edge in his words. Molly nodded nervously. "Just the usual, Duke. What can I get for you?" Duke didn't answer right away. Instead, he tilted his head toward Elon, funny-looking truck outside. "Yours?" he asked, directing his question to Elon, though his tone made it clear he already knew the answer. Elon glanced up, a small smile playing on his lips. "Yeah, that's mine, Cybertruck. Pretty efficient, wouldn't you say?" A low chuckle rippled through the group of bikers. Duke straightened up and took a few steps toward Elon's booth, his boots echoing ominously with each step. He stopped at the edge of the table, his eyes now fixed on the red hat. "Not every day we see a guy like you around here," Duke said, his voice dripping with mock politeness. "And with that hat, too. You sure you're in the right part of Texas?" The room went silent. All eyes were on Elon, waiting to see how he would respond. Elon leaned back in his seat, his expression calm but focused. "I don't pick places based on politics," he replied evenly. "I pick them for good food and interesting people. You seem like you fit the bill." Duke's eyebrows shot up at the response, and for a moment, a flicker of amusement crossed his face. "You got some nerve, I'll give you that," he said. "But that hat, around here it's like waving a red flag in front of a bull." Elon shrugged. "It's just a hat. Doesn't define me or anyone else. Besides, the world's got bigger problems than a piece of fabric, don't you think?" The bikers exchanged glances, a mix of surprise and intrigue on their faces. Duke's lips twitched, as if suppressing a grin. But before anyone could say more, the door swung open again, and a new figure entered the diner. It was a young boy no older than 10, his clothes dusty and his face streaked with dirt. He clutched a small cardboard box tightly in his hands and looked around nervously. The room's attention shifted instantly, and the tension eased slightly as curiosity replaced apprehension. The boy's eyes landed on Elon, and he hesitated before taking a few tentative steps forward. "Mister," he said softly, his voice trembling. "Are you Elon Musk?" Elon turned his head toward the boy, a gentle smile forming on his face. The child's dirt-streaked cheeks and trembling hands told a story before he even spoke. Elon set the menu down, giving the boy his full attention. "That's me," Elon said softly. "What's on your mind?" The boy glanced nervously around the diner. His wide eyes lingered on the bikers for a moment before he shuffled closer to Elon's booth, clutching the small cardboard box even tighter. I heard about you," the boy began, his voice barely above a whisper. "You help people. You make cool stuff that fixes things. I thought maybe you could help me too." The room grew quieter, the bikers shifting uneasily as they observed the unexpected exchange. Even Duke, who had been poised for a confrontation, folded his arms and leaned back slightly, curiosity etched on his face. Elon leaned forward, his voice steady and kind. "What do you need help with?" The boy hesitated, his small fingers fidgeting with the edges of the box. "It's my sister," he said, his words spilling out in a rush. "She's real sick. Mama says we can't afford the doctor no more. I thought maybe you had one of those machines that could fix her." The boy's innocent desperation cut through the diner like a blade. Elon's expression softened further, and he gestured for the boy to sit across from him. "Come sit. What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy replied, sliding into the seat. "Well, Tommy," Elon began, "first of all, you're brave for coming here and asking for help. Let me see what you've got there." Tommy hesitated before gently placing the cardboard box on the table and opening it. Inside was a collection of mismatched parts, wires, a tiny fan, some screws, and what looked like a small circuit board. "I tried to build something," Tommy explained, his voice trembling. "I read about your machines, the ones that save people. I thought maybe if I made one, it could help my sister breathe better." Elon stared at the boy's crude attempt at invention, admiration flickering in his eyes. "This is impressive," he said. "You've got a good mind for problem solving, Tommy. You just need some guidance." Tommy's face lit up with a mix of relief and hope. "You mean you can help me fix it?" Before Elon could respond, Duke interrupted, his voice gruff but no longer antagonistic. "Kid's got guts, I'll give him that. But you really think you can whip up a miracle here, Musk?" Elon glanced at Duke, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Sometimes, a little hope is all it takes to spark a miracle," he said. "Let's see what we can do." The atmosphere in the diner shifted again, the tension dissolving into an unexpected camaraderie. Even the bikers seemed intrigued, their usual bravado giving way to quiet observation. Elon turned back to Tommy. "How far do you live from here?" "Just a couple miles," Tommy replied eagerly. "I can take you to see her." Elon nodded and stood up, reaching for his jacket. "Lead the way, Tommy. We'll figure this out together." Duke raised an eyebrow, stepping aside as Elon and the boy headed for the door. "You've got nerve, Musk," he muttered under his breath. Then, after a pause, he called out, "Hey, kid!" Tommy turned around, startled. Duke tossed a small packet of bills onto the table. "For the doctor, if you need it." The boy's eyes widened, and for the first time, tears welled up. "Thank you, sir," he said, his voice quivering. Elon nodded appreciatively at Duke before stepping out into the Texas sun with Tommy. The bikers watched from the diner windows, a flicker of respect in their expressions. Something about the boy's courage and Elon's willingness to help had struck a chord in the most unlikely of places. Elon and Tommy stepped outside into the warm Texas sun, the air thick with the scent of wildflowers and a faint breeze rustling through the open plains. Elon glanced down at the boy, whose small hand clutched the box tightly, his steps quick and determined as he led the way. "My house isn't too far," Tommy said, his voice carrying a mix of eagerness and worry. "We've been staying in this old place ever since Daddy left. Mama says it's all we've got." Elon's heart tightened at the boy's words. He had seen poverty before through charities, news, and personal experiences, but it never failed to strike him how resilient children like Tommy could be in the face of such hardship. As they walked, Elon noticed the surroundings changing. The neat rows of suburban homes with manicured lawns began to fade, replaced by smaller, run-down houses with peeling paint and sagging fences. Tommy's pace quickened, as if eager to shield Elon from the reality of his home. "It's just up here," Tommy said, pointing to a weathered shack at the end of a dusty lane. The house was small, with a patched-up roof and a porch that leaned to one side. Despite its condition, there was something endearing about the effort to make it feel like home. A line of potted plants sat on the porch, and a faded wind chime tinkled softly in the breeze. As they approached the door, a weary-looking woman stepped out. She was thin, with tired eyes and hands that looked like they'd spent years in hard labor. Her face softened into confusion as she saw Tommy standing beside one of the most recognizable men in the world. "Tommy, who's this?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Mama, this is Mr. Musk," Tommy said excitedly. "He's going to help." The woman's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mr. Musk," she echoed, glancing between her son and Elon. "Elon Musk?" Elon stepped forward, extending his hand. "Yes, ma'am. Tommy told me about your situation. He's a bright kid, and I think we might be able to do something for your daughter." The woman hesitated before shaking his hand, her grip firm despite her obvious exhaustion. "I'm Claire," she said. "And that's real kind of you, but I don't know what Tommy told you. We don't have much, and my little girl, she's been sick for a long time." "I understand," Elon replied gently. "Sometimes the hardest problems need the boldest solutions. I'm here to see how I can help." Claire nodded hesitantly and opened the door, gesturing for them to come inside. The interior was modest and clean, though the signs of struggle were evident. Second-hand furniture, patched curtains, and a small stack of medical bills on the counter told a story of a family doing its best with what little they had. "She's in her room," Claire said, leading them down a short hallway. Tommy clung close to Elon, his face etched with worry. "She's been coughing a lot more," he whispered. "And sometimes she can't catch her breath. That's why I started building that machine. I thought it might help her breathe better." Elon placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "Let's see what we're working with," he said. They entered a small bedroom where a frail girl lay on a bed covered with a handmade quilt. She looked no older than 7, her pale face framed by dark hair that clung to her damp forehead. Her breathing was shallow, each inhale labored, as if it took all her strength. "This is Lily," Claire said, her voice breaking slightly. Elon's eyes softened as he knelt beside the bed. "Hi, Lily," he said gently. "I'm Elon. Your brother told me you're really strong." Lily's eyes fluttered open, and she managed a faint smile. "Tommy's always making things," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He's a smart kid," Elon replied, glancing at the box Tommy still held. "And I think he's onto something with his invention. Let's see if we can make it even better." Tommy handed Elon the box, his small hands trembling with anticipation. Elon opened it, carefully examining the contents once again. "We'll need some additional parts," he said thoughtfully, "but I think we can build something right here." Claire looked skeptical. "You really think you can do something for her?" Elon stood, meeting her gaze with quiet determination. "I can't promise miracles, but I can promise that I'll try." The room was filled with the hum of machines and the faint clicking of tools as Elon and Tommy worked together. Tommy, who had watched countless YouTube tutorials and read everything he could find on engineering, was a natural when it came to assembling them. Elon, with his vast resources and knowledge, quickly adapted to the boys' makeshift setup, offering guidance when needed and encouraging Tommy's enthusiasm. Elon had asked Claire to step out of the room for a moment to give them space to work. With a soft smile, she had nodded and left, quietly closing the door behind her. Now, it was just the two of them, as Elon worked beside the young inventor. "This is incredible, Tommy," Elon said, his voice filled with admiration. The boy had taken various scraps, discarded electronics, and even parts from broken household items, and had fashioned them into a rudimentary yet surprisingly efficient-looking machine. "You've got an incredible mind." Tommy grinned, his eyes shining with pride. "I just wanted to help Lily," he said, his voice tinged with hope. "She's my sister. I'll do whatever it takes to make her better." Elon could see the deep love Tommy had for his sister, and it only fueled his own determination to help. Together, they worked late into the afternoon. Elon's hands moved swiftly, using his experience to make the device more robust and functional, while Tommy eagerly handed him the pieces he needed, offering suggestions based on his own understanding of how the machine should work. They were creating a kind of air purifier, something that could help Lily breathe easier. Tommy had the right idea, but the design needed more precision, more power. Elon used his knowledge of clean energy and sustainable technology to refine it. Finally, after hours of fine-tuning, they had something that looked promising. Elon stepped back, wiping his brow. The machine hummed quietly, its lights blinking steadily. "Let's see if this works," Elon said, his voice filled with cautious optimism. Tommy beamed. "You think it'll help?" "I think we've got a shot," Elon replied, his eyes scanning the machine with a practiced eye. With gentle hands, Elon helped Tommy position the machine next to Lily's bed. The small, quiet device began to filter the air, releasing purified oxygen that could make it easier for her to breathe. The effect was almost immediate. Lily, who had been lying still with shallow breaths, seemed to perk up. Her eyes fluttered open again, and her face, though still pale, looked a little less strained. "Lily," Tommy whispered, his voice trembling with hope. Lily took a slow, deep breath. "It feels better," she whispered, her voice stronger this time. "I can breathe more easily." Elon and Tommy exchanged a look, both relieved. It wasn't a miracle, but it was progress. It was the first step toward helping Lily, and that was enough for now. Claire entered the room, her eyes widening as she saw her daughter breathing easier. She looked from the machine to Elon, her voice filled with disbelief. "You did this?" she asked, her voice breaking with emotion. Elon smiled softly. "Tommy did most of the work. I just helped him refine it. We're not done yet, but this is a start." Claire moved to her daughter's side, gently stroking Lily's hair. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. "You don't have to say anything," Elon said, his eyes soft with understanding. "I just wanted to help." The small, makeshift air purifier wasn't the end of their journey, but it was the beginning of something. With this first step, they had given Lily a little relief. And with the determination of people like Tommy and the support of someone like Elon, there was hope that this small family's life could improve just a little more each day. For Elon, it was a reminder that sometimes the best solutions came from the most unexpected places. A boy with a dream and a family with a need had led him to this moment. And though he wasn't sure what the future held, he knew one thing for sure: they would face it together. As the days passed, Lily's condition improved, albeit slowly. The makeshift air purifier Elon and Tommy had built helped, but there were still many hurdles to overcome. The medical team, although impressed by the progress, recommended that they continue with regular treatments and therapies to ensure Lily's lungs could regain some strength. But in the meantime, they were hopeful. Elon found himself coming back to the small house almost every day. At first, it was just to check on the machine they had built together. But over time, he became more involved in Lily's care and Tommy's development. Tommy's enthusiasm for invention had sparked something in Elon, an appreciation for raw, untapped talent. The boy had vision. If given the right resources, he could do great things. One afternoon, as Elon was fine-tuning another gadget for Tommy's experiments, he called Claire into the room. "You've got something special here," Elon said, his voice carrying the gravity of his words. Claire, who had grown more relaxed and hopeful over the past few days, nodded. "I know," she said softly. "I can see it. Tommy's determination, the way he doesn't stop until he finds a solution. And Lily, she's fighting so hard. But we need more help, Elon. I don't know how much longer we can keep going like this. We're stretched thin both financially and emotionally." Elon stood silently for a moment, processing Claire's words. He had already done what he could to help Tommy with the technology, but this was a larger issue. It wasn't just about gadgets or inventions. It was about a family struggling to stay afloat in a sea of uncertainty. "We're going to need to think bigger," Elon said finally, turning toward Claire. "You've been doing this on your own for so long. It's time you had the support you deserve." Claire's eyes widened slightly, as though she didn't quite understand what Elon meant. "What do you mean?" "I'm going to make sure you and Tommy have the resources you need to make this work. I want to help you build something that could not only help Lily but change the way people approach healthcare in rural communities like this. I believe in Tommy's potential. And I believe in you both." Claire took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of emotions flood through her. She was grateful, but also hesitant. She had never imagined that someone like Elon Musk, a man of such immense wealth and influence, would care enough to invest in their lives. But here he was, making her an offer she couldn't refuse. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Completely," Elon replied, his tone firm. "We'll bring in a team of experts to work with you and Tommy. I've got the resources to help you get the right equipment, the right research, and the right guidance to push this project forward. You won't have to do it alone anymore." Tommy, who had been quietly listening from the doorway, stepped into the room with a bright smile on his face. "Does this mean we're going to build more stuff together, Elon?" Elon chuckled, ruffling Tommy's hair. "Absolutely. You've got a brilliant mind, Tommy. And I think we can make a real difference." As the days wore on, Elon began making calls, setting up meetings, and arranging resources. The plan was to create a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing technological advancements to underserved communities, focusing on affordable medical devices energy solutions, and educational programs. The goal was to create a sustainable future for people like Claire, Tommy, and Lily families who had so much potential, but lacked the resources to thrive. While Tommy and Elon worked on prototypes and blueprints for the next phase of their projects, Claire focused on creating a more supportive environment for Lily. The emotional weight of caring for a sick child never fully left her, but the partnership with Elon gave her hope that one day her family's struggles would be behind them. Lily, too, began to show improvements. With the air purifier working more effectively and the right treatments in place, her breathing grew steadier. It was a slow process, but it was progress. And progress meant everything. For Elon, this experience had become more than just a project. It had become a mission. He'd come into their lives as a billionaire, a man with everything he could ever need. But through this family, he had rediscovered the value of compassion, of seeing potential where others saw only need. He had witnessed firsthand how something as simple as a boy's dream and a mother's love could ignite a spark of innovation. And he knew he wasn't done yet. "Together we can do this," Elon said one evening as he looked over the plans with Tommy. "This is just the beginning." For the first time in a long while, Elon felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't about the technology, the fame, or the money. It was about the people. And in that small house, surrounded by the unwavering bond of family, Elon had found something priceless. Purpose. 8 weeks passed. The project continued to evolve. What started as a small collaboration between Elon, Tommy, and Claire slowly grew into something much bigger. Elon's decision to invest in their idea wasn't just about helping one family, it was about creating a model that could inspire change on a broader scale. What they were working on had the potential to help people across the country, even the world. But the impact wasn't just technical or financial, it was emotional and personal. Claire noticed a shift in herself as well. For the first time in years, she felt like the weight of responsibility was being shared. The constant worry about how to provide for Lily's medical care, how to keep the lights on, how to make sure Tommy's brilliant ideas didn't go to waste, those burdens seemed lighter. With Elon's support, she was able to focus on what mattered most, her family's well-being. It felt like a burden had been lifted from her shoulders, and she could breathe easier, literally and figuratively. But it wasn't just about her. Elon's involvement had a ripple effect, reaching beyond their small circle. His support and guidance inspired others. The first to take notice were the local doctors and medical professionals who had been helping Lily. They were initially skeptical about the unconventional treatments and gadgets Tommy and Elon were developing. But as Lily's condition improved, they became more open-minded. Soon, other families in the area were coming to Claire, asking for advice or help with their own struggles. Tommy's ideas, once considered too far-fetched, were now being seen as innovative solutions to long-standing problems. Tommy, still a young boy, began to develop a newfound sense of confidence. His ideas were no longer dismissed as child's play, they were becoming valuable contributions to real-world problems. With Elon's mentorship, Tommy started to understand the power of his own mind. He wasn't just a boy playing with gadgets, he was an inventor, a problem solver who could make a difference. One afternoon, as Tommy tinkered with a new design for a water filtration system, Elon stopped by to see how things were going. Tommy, who had been sketching plans on a large piece of paper, looked up and smiled when he saw Elon. "Look, it's working," Tommy exclaimed, pointing to a small prototype of the water filtration system he'd been working on for weeks. "I think this could clean water in places that don't have access to safe drinking water." Elon examined the device closely. It was a small but impressive design, made with affordable materials and simple enough for communities with limited resources to use. He could see the potential immediately. "This is incredible, Tommy," Elon said, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "We can take this further. We can get this into the hands of people who need it the most." Tommy's face lit up with pride. He had never imagined that something he had built in his own backyard could make such an impact. But there was more to his success than just the invention itself. It was the fact that Elon, one of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world, was taking him seriously. He felt validated, understood, and most importantly, hopeful about the future. Claire, overhearing the conversation, couldn't help but feel a wave of gratitude. She'd seen Tommy's potential long before Elon had ever stepped into their lives. But seeing the way her son was being mentored, supported, and encouraged, she felt a deep sense of pride. This wasn't just about technology, it was about changing the course of their lives. As the word spread, more people came forward, inspired by the ripple effect of Elon's kindness. Local businesses who had once been hesitant to help Claire and her family now offered donations and sponsorships for the project. Even schools in the area expressed interest in using Tommy's designs for educational purposes. The story of how a billionaire had helped a struggling family was resonating with people in ways they hadn't expected. It was a testament to the power of kindness, and it was sparking a movement. But there was still a lot of work to be done. Elon and Tommy, with the help of other experts, continued refining their designs. They worked late into the night developing prototypes for affordable medical devices, energy solutions, and water purification systems technologies that could be used by people in rural areas, low-income communities, and places where access to basic resources was scarce. The collaboration between Elon and the family had turned into a full-fledged project, one that had the potential to change lives on a global scale. But for Claire, Tommy, and even Elon, the true value of the journey wasn't in the success they achieved. It was in the bond they had formed, the bond that transcended wealth, status, and background. It was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you could offer someone wasn't money or resources, it was your time, your support, and your belief in their potential. As the first phase of their project came to completion, Claire couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. When she first met Elon, her family was barely hanging on, struggling with illness and financial strain. Now they were on the cusp of creating something that could change lives. Sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you, Claire thought, looking at her son, who was now busy planning the next step in their mission. And for Elon, it was a reminder of something he'd known all along, that the greatest impact he could make wasn't through technology alone. It was through the lives he touched, the hearts he changed, and the hope he restored. The ripple effect of kindness had only just begun. As the days passed, the small project that had begun with a single act of kindness began to take on a life of its own. Elon, Tommy, and Claire were no longer just collaborators, they were a team. Their bond had grown stronger, not just through the work they were doing, but through the personal connections they had formed along the way. Their journey was no longer just about fixing one problem, it was about creating a future full of possibilities, hope, and opportunity for many more people. The project had taken its first steps toward launching on a larger scale. Tommy's water filtration system was now being tested in various rural communities across the country, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Elon's connections in the tech world were helping bring even more innovation to the table, as he enlisted engineers and scientists to develop other life-changing technologies. What was once a modest idea had become a full-fledged mission to tackle some of the world's most pressing issues: clean water, affordable healthcare, and sustainable energy. Claire, who had always felt like the world was closing in on her, now found herself at the center of a growing movement. As the media caught wind of the project, Claire began receiving invitations to speak at conferences, sharing the story of how one act of kindness had changed the course of her family's future. She became an advocate for innovation, for the power of collaboration, and for the importance of investing in people, not just ideas. But beyond the public attention, Claire had found something even more precious: peace. For the first time in years, she wasn't constantly worried about how to make ends meet. She wasn't afraid of what tomorrow would bring. The financial strain that had once dominated her thoughts now seemed distant. Elon's support had brought not just resources but also a new sense of security to their lives. One morning, as Claire sat in her kitchen, sipping coffee and watching Tommy work on another prototype in the next room, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. This was the life she had always hoped for, a life where she didn't have to constantly worry about survival. She had a chance to dream again, to think about the future not just for her, but for her son. Tommy, who had once spent his days dreaming alone in his room, was now living in a world where his ideas were valued, where he could see his creations making a real difference. He had been invited to speak at schools, sharing his story and his inventions with other children. His classmates, who had once seen him as the weird kid who plays with gadgets, were now looking up to him with admiration. Tommy had become a role model, not just for his peers, but for people of all ages who saw in him the promise of a brighter future. His natural curiosity had led him to create things that could change the world, and he was just getting started. Even Elon, who had seen and done so much in his career, felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. This project, this collaboration, had rekindled something inside him, something he had almost forgotten in the whirlwind of his business ventures. It wasn't just about changing the world with technology. It was about helping people, inspiring the next generation of innovators, and making a lasting difference in ways that mattered most. He had always believed in the power of human potential, but through Tommy and Claire, he was seeing that belief come to life in ways that surpassed his expectations. As the project expanded, they began to draw the attention of larger organizations and governments, who saw the potential for the technologies they were developing to solve problems on a global scale. Soon, their work was no longer confined to just one community. It was reaching people in developing countries, remote villages, and impoverished urban centers. The water filtration system that Tommy had designed was now being implemented in several countries where access to clean drinking water had long been a struggle. Medical devices that were once considered too costly for most communities were now being made affordable and accessible to those who needed them most. The team was also working on energy solutions that could power homes in places that had never had reliable electricity. But even with all the success, Tommy and Claire never lost sight of what mattered most to them, their family. They continued to work side by side, pouring their hearts into each project, knowing that every innovation was a step toward building a better life for the people they had always cared about. They had never imagined that one small act of kindness could lead them to this point. As the years went by, the impact of their work became undeniable. What started as an act of generosity had evolved into a movement that changed the lives of millions. But for Tommy, Claire, and Elon, the most rewarding part of the journey was seeing how their actions had inspired others to believe in the power of kindness and innovation. It had created a cycle, a ripple effect that was continuing to spread. One evening, as they stood together on the balcony of their home, looking out at the city that had been transformed by their work, Elon turned to Claire and Tommy. "I couldn't have imagined this when I first met you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You've both reminded me of why I do what I do. It's not just about the technology. It's about the people." Claire smiled, looking at Tommy as he gazed up at the stars. "I think we're all part of something bigger now," she said softly. Tommy nodded, a sense of wonder in his eyes. "We can do anything, Mom? Anything." And in that moment, they knew that the world was full of possibilities. It had been changed by one act of kindness, but it was also shaped by the belief that anyone, no matter their background or circumstances, could make a difference. Together, they had created something that would endure long after their work was done, a legacy of hope, innovation, and compassion. And for Tommy and Claire, the future had never looked brighter. Years passed, and the impact of the project continued to grow. The technologies that Tommy, Claire, and Elon had worked so tirelessly to develop had sparked a revolution, one that rippled far beyond their initial vision. What began as a small idea to provide clean water and affordable healthcare had expanded into a global movement, transforming entire communities and changing the course of countless lives. Claire and Tommy had become symbols of resilience and hope. Their story had inspired people from all walks of life, especially those who had faced adversity and felt powerless. The simple, everyday kindness that had set everything in motion had proved that no act was too small to change the world. Claire often found herself reflecting on the struggles they had endured together, how far they had come from those early days of uncertainty, when she had worried about feeding Tommy and keeping a roof over their heads. Now they were not just surviving, they were thriving. Tommy, who had once been the quiet, curious boy who dreamed alone in his room, had blossomed into a young man with a deep sense of purpose. His inventions had not only improved the lives of people around the world, but they had also inspired a new generation of innovators. Schools were now inviting him to mentor students, and he frequently spoke at conferences, sharing his knowledge and encouraging others to think outside the box. What Tommy hadn't expected, however, was the effect his story would have on the world. He had always seen himself as just an ordinary kid with a passion for science and technology. But as he traveled the world, meeting people who had been touched by his inventions, he began to realize the profound impact he had made. He wasn't just changing lives with technology, he was inspiring others to follow their passions, to dream big, and to use their talents to help others. Claire, too, had become an advocate not just for the project, but for the power of community and collaboration. She had spoken at countless events, telling her story and explaining how, through hard work and the support of people who cared, she had built a better life for her family. She often told the audience that while her journey had been difficult, it had also been beautiful, because it had taught her one of the most important lessons of all, the power of kindness. Their work had attracted the attention of major organizations, and they had partnered with governments, nonprofit groups, and corporations, all eager to bring their life-changing innovations to even more people. Tommy's water filtration system was now being used in dozens of countries, helping to provide clean drinking water to millions. Solar energy solutions had made their way to remote villages where electricity had once been a luxury. Medical devices designed by Tommy's team had saved countless lives, providing affordable healthcare in places where it had been unavailable before. But as the success of their project grew, so did the responsibility. They had become leaders in a global movement for change, and with that came the pressure to keep innovating, to continue finding solutions to the world's most pressing problems. At times, Claire found herself overwhelmed, questioning whether they could truly keep up with the ever-growing demands. But Tommy, ever the optimist, reminded her of the power of their work and the people they had touched. "Mom, we've already changed the world," Tommy would say with a smile. "We can handle whatever comes next." Elon, too, had remained a steadfast presence in their lives. He had become a mentor to Tommy, guiding him as he navigated the complex world of entrepreneurship and innovation. But more importantly, Elon had become a close friend to both Claire and Tommy, always there to offer advice and support when needed. One day, as they were discussing the next steps for their project, Elon turned to Tommy with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, "you've come a long way from the kid who was building gadgets in his room. But the world needs more than just inventors, it needs leaders. And I think you're ready for that." Tommy looked at him surprised. "Me? A leader?" Elon smiled. "You've already led by example. You've shown people what's possible when you believe in yourself and others. Now it's time to take that leadership and use it to create even more change." Tommy felt a surge of determination. He had always been passionate about science and technology, but now he saw his role in a new light. It wasn't just about creating new inventions, it was about using those inventions to inspire and lead others toward a better future. As the project continued to evolve, Tommy and Claire's vision for a better world was becoming a reality. The work they had started together had grown into something far greater than they could have imagined. It had sparked a movement, one that was empowering people from every corner of the globe to believe that they, too, could make a difference. Claire often thought back to that moment when Elon had stopped to help them, when Tommy had dreamed of making something that could change the world. They had faced so many obstacles along the way, financial struggles, doubts, fears, but none of it had stopped them from pursuing their vision. And now, as they stood at the helm of a global movement, Claire realized that it wasn't just the technology that had made the difference. It was the people behind it. It was the kindness, the dedication, and the belief that together they could accomplish anything. The ripple effect of their work was far-reaching. The innovations that had come from their small project had sparked a wave of creativity and compassion, showing the world that change was possible, one act of kindness at a time. And as Tommy and Claire looked out at the world they had helped transform, they knew that their work was far from over. Their journey was just beginning. Years had passed since Tommy, Claire, and Elon had first embarked on their incredible journey. The project that had once seemed like an impossible dream had now become a living, breathing testament to the power of determination, innovation, and kindness. And yet, as they looked toward the future, they knew their work was not done. The world had changed, but the mission to continue helping those in need to innovate for a better tomorrow was far from over. Tommy, now a young adult, stood at the helm of the next phase of their work. His leadership had grown immensely over the years, not just in the world of technology, but in inspiring others to think critically, to dream boldly, and to always act with purpose. With his natural talent for invention and his newly honed skills as a leader, Tommy was ready to push the boundaries of what was possible. But it wasn't just about making new technologies anymore, it was about bringing people together to create meaningful, sustainable change on a global scale. In the early days, Tommy had often found himself overwhelmed by the weight of his dreams. But now, with the help of his team, including Claire, and the continued support from Elon and other close partners, he had learned to balance ambition with responsibility. His inventions had already saved lives, and now he sought to create systems that would empower communities to sustain themselves long after the project's work was done. The new focus was on education and community empowerment. Tommy's goal was not only to provide immediate solutions, but to teach the people who benefited from them how to maintain and improve their own futures. They began building educational centers in remote areas, teaching young people the skills to continue developing their own technologies, solutions, and systems. It was no longer about outsiders coming in to save the day, it was about uplifting communities and providing them with the tools and knowledge to thrive independently. Claire, too, had found her place in this new phase. As the heart and soul of the movement, she had become an advocate for social change in ways she had never anticipated. She was a frequent speaker at global summits, where she shared the story of their journey and the lessons they had learned. She spoke about resilience, about the importance of showing up even when things seemed impossible, and about the incredible potential that existed in every individual, no matter their background. She had become a voice for those who had long been overlooked, those who had the drive but lacked the resources. Claire's speeches often moved audiences to tears, as she reminded them of the power they held to make change, both in their own lives and in the lives of others. Her message was clear: each of us has a role to play, and we all have something valuable to contribute. Elon, while still deeply involved in the project, had taken a step back to focus on his own ventures. His mentorship of Tommy and Claire had been invaluable, but now he allowed them to lead fully, knowing they were more than capable. He had always believed in their potential, and now, as he watched them transform the world, he knew they would continue to blaze new trails for generations to come. But even as Tommy, Claire, and Elon looked ahead to the future, they never forgot where they came from. They remembered the days of hardship when they had been struggling to make ends meet, when their dream had seemed impossible. They remembered the communities that had helped them, the people who had believed in them when no one else did. And they carried those memories with them as they expanded their reach, determined to never lose sight of the real people who would benefit from their work. The ripple effect of their project had spread across the globe. Clean water systems now reached remote villages in Africa and Southeast Asia. Medical clinics were providing affordable care to underserved populations, and renewable energy was lighting up homes in the most unlikely of places. In addition to their technological innovations, they had started an entire network of leaders who were working together to push for social and environmental change. One day, Tommy sat down with Claire and Elon in a quiet room, reflecting on everything they had achieved. The walls were lined with photos and mementos from their journey, pictures of the communities they had helped, of young innovators who had gone on to lead their own initiatives, and of the families whose lives had been transformed. "You know, Mom," Tommy said, a soft smile on his face, "I never would have believed any of this would be possible when I was a kid, but here we are. We've really done it." Claire smiled back, her eyes filled with pride and warmth. "We've done more than that, Tommy. We've shown people that when you combine heart with action, the world can change. We've started something that will live on long after we're gone." Elon, who had been listening quietly, nodded. "You've created something bigger than any one of us. This is the power of vision, and it's only the beginning." As they sat together, it was clear that their legacy was not just in the projects they had completed, but in the values they had instilled in others, the belief that anyone, no matter their background or circumstances, could make a difference. Their journey had become a living example of the power of persistence, kindness, and community. It had proven that even the most difficult challenges could be overcome, and that the right combination of passion, innovation, and collaboration could lead to extraordinary results. Tommy, Claire, and Elon knew their story was far from over. They had sparked a movement, and the next generation of changemakers was already stepping up to carry the torch. The legacy of their work would continue to inspire and uplift people for generations to come, proving that a single act of kindness could change the world, and that no dream was too big if you had the courage to pursue it.